This one goes out to the Artcasters. Ooh, Artcasters! I say you're catching your spell, Artcasters. Catching your spell. Ooh, you're gonna cast that spell. Strike a hell. Whoa! Ooh, hi, 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 hi.
All right, welcome to episode 469 of Artcasters. That's right, 469. Yeah, 400. Anyhow, I'm your host. Scott and I are your hosts, and we're gonna basically get into it and introduce our guest. Before we kind of get into the topic and introduce our guest, we'll just kind of make around and let everybody know where to find our stuff. You're on my channel, and if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. And then if you are really into indie comics that cool hip kids read, check out Two Stories and Jacob's Apartment, my two graphic novels that are currently out. And also check out my music. No Saboteurs just released a new album. It's really good. It's called The Sun Eventually Sets on Everything. And it's on streaming platforms everywhere, completely free. And one of our guests also does music, so he'll make sure when we get to you, you mention your music too. So you could literally listen to music by cartoonists all day. Also check out my solo album. So that's basically it for my stuff. Scott, where can everybody find your beautiful work, especially if they're really into retro stuff?
Yeah, so if you are into retro stuff, Gen X style stuff on my YouTube, what I've been doing recently is taking all this cool nostalgia and ephemera from the 70s, 80s, and 90s and kind of breaking it apart, seeing how it works, putting it back together, but putting it back together in weird and unusual ways. So check out some of that stuff. Also, you can go to my website at circworks.com where you can find my comics. The collected edition of Young and the Dead, my Kids vs. Zombie adventure story, is not up there yet, but it will be soon. Just wait until I get that out to all my Kickstarter backers, most of which should have it by now. But be on the lookout. You got yours? Oh yeah. Most people should have it by now. There's just a few. There's one that keeps getting sent back to me, and I keep mailing it out because my email, my mail service that I use, it wants to auto-correct and add wrong addresses for some reason. So it keeps this one package has cost me up to probably $20 because it keeps sending it back with the wrong address. I love the book.
It was fantastic.
Oh, thank you. But it will be available on my website soon. Other than that, there's all kinds of others. You can find any of my stuff through my website. So definitely check it out, circworks.com.
Yeah, it's got that ending. It's funny because I've been following this with you, for years. It's like I felt so excited when it came in the mail. I just tore it open and read the last book, because I was like, I have to know.
First four, but I read them all again.
Oh, awesome! Thanks. Story. Yeah, and I just really hope I stuck the landing.
You did. That last page got me giddy like a kid. It was just really good. Yeah. Nicely done. And really beautifully printed too. So well done, sir. Well done. It dawned on me, I don't think, Scott, you've been on an episode with David in a long time with our guest here.
I thought we had him back after Halloween.
Oh, maybe we did.
One after Halloween.
Yeah.
But most of the time, Scott and I are never in the same room.
Yeah, I don't know why these strange people keep appearing as co-hosts every time David's on for Halloween.
So there's a different somebody in my spot.
Yeah, done Stan Lee, Gene Simmons, Vincent Price.
Yeah, it's wild. Who knows next year?
Yeah,
maybe it'll be Columbo.
I don't know. I'm not saying
here. Wrath of Khan.
Ooh, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about Khan. That was a good one. But we've had some very famous guests, so you guys should feel honored. Stan Lee, Khan.
we bring people back from the dead.
Yeah, for sure. So our next guest you should be familiar with, but if not, David, where can people find more of your stuff, more about your work, and check you out and all?
Yeah, well, most of my stuff is sideshowmonkey.com is my website, but I don't always update that. So Instagram, David Hartman Art. I got some TV shows on Twilight of the Gods, which was on Netflix, and then Arc, which is on Paramount. Those two shows. And again, you were talking music. I got my albums. Zorgon is my AKA, which I'm working on another album right now, which is actually, I'm so happy with everything I got. I got too much music, where now it's whittling it down to what I actually would believe. So it's kind of that's the hard part. But yeah, that and these comics that we'll be talking about today.
I love it. I'm excited about it. Okay, and before we kind of get deep into the comics we're talking about today, we have a new guest, friend of David Hartman, Shannon Eric Denton. Shannon, where can people find more about you and kind of follow your work and stuff? And then we'll dip into the comics.
I'm sending everybody to MonsterForgeProductions.com, and then all MonsterForge on all the socials.
Awesome. I love it. And that's really, like, I think both of you guys have such good URLs, like Sideshow Monkey and MonsterForge.
Shannon's is great. Just MonsterForge. Just look it up.
Yeah.
You're going to find it.
It's perfect, though. They're both really easy to remember. And MonsterForge is a great name, too. So our topic today is forging a monster. And so we're going to kind of get into, like, well, I mean, so David's talked a ton about monsters on Artcasters.
Hey, Josh, real quick. Before we get into the topic, I just want to address something in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
So Jimmy said that he got his Kickstarter reward. So it was, this is an unusual story, and I'll make it brief, but somebody actually stole his reward. His box arrived, like, empty. Somebody took the comic mailer and slid it. And it had to have been somebody who I imagine had to be, because if you know how those Gemini comic mailers are, right?
Yeah,
they don't just fall open and stuff doesn't just fall out.
A lot of work.
Yeah, so
what a compliment, Scott.
I don't think it's because of me. All you would have to know, if you know comics, you know that sometimes people send.
Wait, but Scott, didn't somebody steal like a mini comic of yours before too? I feel like this has happened before. I think you have some hoodlum fans.
It was super odd. So I'm glad you got it. I just hate because, like, if I send it back and the same person intercepted it somewhere. So, but I'm glad you got it. So anyway.
And you gained a new fan of Young and the Dead too, Scott, through that, you know.
Yeah. I don't think it was. I think they got what they were expecting. Although, and the other thing was, that his was a larger tier, and he bought a remark and a sketch card, so there was original artwork in it. So
that's
I had to reproduce it. Yeah. So anyway,
that's one thing that scares me about. Like, I have some original pages, not for the one I'm working on now, because I'm working on it all digital, but for like 2 stories in Jacob's apartment and stuff. And I've thought about selling them, but that scares the crap out of me. Like, what happens if you lose an original page in the mail? You know, like, you can't really replace that. Like, I don't know. That just seems, I know there's like insurance and stuff, but yeah, whenever you're mailing original art, it's like a little nerve wracking, you know?
Always scary.
Yeah. All right, so Shannon, why don't we get into what you love about monsters, and maybe David can chime in a little bit and recap a little bit of that, because we've talked to him ad nauseum about loving monsters.
Yeah.
But Shannon, when did you first like kind of find yourself drawn to like monsters?
Very young. My dad was a military pilot, so we moved all over. And at the point where I was young, they had a creature double feature on Saturdays. So you'd watch cartoons, and then it would be 2 monster movies back to back after that. I think that's where sort of the love began. And, you know, between it and Star Wars and everything else, I sort of realized as I started this company 5 years ago that monsters was something I loved, but the definition was a lot broader than people like to think it is. Brian Lynch created Despicable Me, and there's those Minions movies are going, and, those are monsters.
Yeah.
Mandalorian's got tons of monsters in it. So I think once I sort of started realizing hey, I wanted to start this company up, it was something that I had loved my whole life, and so that it made it easy to from a branding point of view. Because to me, the definition is like, oh, I chat with monsters with Hartman all the time, and other people. It's not always like slasher horror, even though that stuff's awesome. It's a big range of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, arguably Sesame Street is monsters. It's and Sesame Street's rad too, but it's partially rad because it's a bunch of monsters. It's like so. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, monsters are always really alluring and interesting. So MonsterForge, like, what was the impetus to kind of start your own company? From what I understand, you've written for a lot of big publishers and for large films and stuff like that.
Yeah,
why venture out and start your own thing?
I think that I hit a point where I was doing a ton of work for other people. It was during the pandemic. I was directing 3 different TV shows at the same time, and then they all wrapped in the same week. And I was like, yesterday everybody loved me. Today I'm looking for work. So it was one of those, before jumping in and trying to find something with somebody else, I was like, I'm going to take a chance and gamble on me.
Yeah.
And my career has been so, I love my career, but it's really like HR people are like, what? I thought you were a writer. And I'm like, I am, when they pay me to be a writer over here. And they're like, I thought you were an artist. I'm like, I am, I'm doing it over here. Like, to me, it was all part of telling stories.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm doing it with toys, and sometimes I'm doing it in the video game industry, and sometimes I'm doing it in comics. So for me, the MonsterForge of it all was kind of a way to sort of like be like, hey, this is the stuff I love. And if you love this stuff too, here's a cool place to hang out with other people who like this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's how Shannon and I kind of met up and got along so well, is that we both like to wear many hats, and do different things. It's more about the love of storytelling than it is really about the mediums that we're in. Of course, we love animation, we love comics, we love movies, but we love storytelling, and it drives all those things. And that's personally what gravitated me towards Shannon when we were both working together on a Army of the Dead series, which I don't know if it'll ever happen, but
that really should happen, though. That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous.
It really was. But anyhow, Shane and I were working on that, and we kind of hit it off, always talking monsters and fun stuff. And he invited me on to, do a book with him, and we did one, and then it led to another. But the thing was, our thing was always monsters, but I really believed in the branding and that Shannon was doing. It wasn't, again, just all in on one thing. It's like, let's do several different, let's do toys, let's do music, let's do comics, let's do books, like prose. We got writers on for doing novellas and stuff. So there's so much cool stuff that MonsterForge covers. I just fell in love with it. So, and I knew Shannon years ago. I don't even know if I told you this, Shannon. I'm sure I have. We had talked online way back in the day, like DeviantArt days. Shannon had this website called Comic Works, which had a lot of indie art, and I mean, of its time, it was kind of groundbreaking. I thought it. And forgive me, Shannon, if I mislabel it or anything, but to me, it was kind of like the webtoons of the day, or a place for people who weren't going to be published by the big two, but had awesome stories. But also, there was a place for professionals and stuff. And I used to go there all the time, and I knew Shannon's name from that site. And we had corresponded a couple times back then, but it was like DeviantArt days. But I was too busy doing other stuff. And long story. Or two guys that love monsters.
I love that, though, because I feel like I think we've all been doing professional art for a long time, and it's like 20 years into this, the one thing I've realized, anytime there's kind of a dead time or I'm unemployed briefly or whatever, the one thing that's always been consistently rewarding is to use those times to like build properties and build your own thing.
Absolutely.
Because like that, like investing in yourself, like usually is like a cyclical thing where that'll also help like industry wise later on anyway. Plus like you work for enough companies, and like once in a while you'll end up in those perfect scenarios where it's like a perfect team. It comes out exactly like you envisioned, right? But a lot of the times, like there's little compromises that you have to do along the way.
Yep.
Having your own company, and this is kind of for you, Shannon, but it's like, is that also providing you kind of an outlet to like fully tell the stories you absolutely want to tell without like them getting bogged down by like, a bunch of corporate entities at the top.
Executives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and going back to the comic works of it all, I'm proud of it, but it was like we were doing internet comics in the late 90s, early 2000s, so
Yeah.
people were still just kind of finding it. And folks like Ernie Colon, who, was the first guy to draw Casper and Hot Stuff, and, he was a friend, he had been a
Legend.
mentor, and people weren't giving him work, but he still had so many stories to tell. And that was part of where he started Comic Works up, because I wanted Ernie to have a spot to tell his stories. And we were partnered with Stan Lee. A lot of the artists that were contributing were guys that worked all day on Justice League cartoons, but had never actually done comics, but wanted to, but they didn't have time to hit up Image or Marvel to do a 22-page a month on top of all their storyboards they had to get done. But they're like, I can do a 3-page story a month. So the format allowed, or the media allowed us to like have people tell stories, because there wasn't that expectation there had to be an issue every Wednesday. So that was cool about that.
No, that's brilliant. Yeah, and it it's like it is one of those things where if you don't have like if you have a different creative job, right, and then you're not going to have time to like put out like a 24 page issue a month, it's like either like web releases, or it seems like graphic novels are kind of the best bet for that now. But that's amazing that you kind of ran that, especially or started that up, but particularly because you had a guy that Cologne, who you're just like, this guy needs to have his work seen more,
again,
because I mean, what a legend. That's crazy that people weren't putting out his stuff.
His content was horror stuff, because he was so famous for all the the Casper and everything else.
Yeah,
like, this is what I wanted to do, but nobody was hiring him to do it, so he was like, I'm just going to tell these stories. It was great.
Yeah,
that's my. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I there's so many artists that do humor and horror well. Like we were just talking about Jack Davis.
Yeah.
And he did both very well.
Yeah.
They are so tied together. I've found just since MonsterForge started, like how funny so many of the horror folks are, and how so many of my comedy friends who I worked with on Robot Chicken and other stuff have been jonesing to do horror. Like they definitely sort of vibe together well.
Yeah, they do seem like almost like in a similar realm. Like I forget the person who's
DC artists went on to Mad Magazine, right? Like
it
was fantastic.
There's a lot of like defined expectation to get that surprise. To like then I think that's the timing of it all is what works so well between horror and comedy.
Yeah. I've noticed that same thing with because I do a lot of like slice of life, kind of indie stuff and stuff like that. But I've done a lot of books with like humor, like writers and comedians and stuff too. And whenever we all hang out, we're like, we completely get along, because I do think in a similar way, like comedy and like darker topics, you have to be kind of in touch with like the darker sides of humanity to tell good humor. You have to be really observant and kind of point out absurdities in life. So a lot of comics I know are like some of the most like profound thinkers, like in the sense of just like really exploring like the darker topics in life, because it's like they have to kind of go there just to like come up with material.
I always say this, like the horror people are the nicest people ever, because they get all their demons out, whether books, movies, whatever they get. There's so much negativity released. They're actually the nicest people. Well-adjusted
you always get those people that don't expect it. Like, I can't believe how nice that person is. Some people might be that aren't familiar with horror or whatever.
Yeah,
like, right. I didn't know what to think of this person, and like they're so nice.
Of the whole monster thing too is like you're having empathy for the different. You're having for something that is not like yourself.
Yeah,
I think the people that are drawn to that are sort of already kind of ahead in the life factor in terms of like you're able to like walk a mile in somebody else's shoes.
Yeah,
so I think that's a big part of why I like working with so many people like working on monster stuff.
And Shannon, the fact that you love storytelling so much too, it makes sense that while I'm sure I'm sure like working in film is a little more lucrative than comics, but it's like comics are such a great medium for story. It's like it's like the perfect medium for story, and it doesn't require like a giant staff to make like a story in comic format.
Yeah.
So
I came in at a time where like every single person I was working, because I started at Image at the end of year one. So like,
oh, wow.
Everybody drives a Lamborghini and is going to get rich if they do this for a few years. So I think what it is that in animation, you can get to the middle class faster. Like you get health benefits at the end of week one.
Yeah.
There's a health plan, they sign up. So it's easier, but I do know plenty of people that are doing very well with their comics. So I just always like to, it's
the comics are the slow burn, right, Shannon? Yeah. Like it, you're building kind of legacies with these characters and IP, as they like to call it. But I don't know. For me, comics, it's all about the reward of. I'm sure you guys are kind of the same way, but you got a story in your head. Actually getting it out. Writing it's one thing. Drawing it is a whole nother. You're showing visuals to your own story, which maybe gets you even thinking about your own story deeper than you even thought, because now you're thinking pacing, angles, how to show stuff. And I grew up like most of us did with that medium, and it's just there's a passion to it where I would do it whether they give me no money or I have to pay them money. I would still do it because I just love it so much. And it's not even about that really. It's about, again, the passion for storytelling. And I know Shannon and I, we just have so many monster stories we want to tell and draw. And, that's where we hooked up on these two books, which now we can mention. We're allowed to mention.
And it's interesting.
I think in past podcasts, and I couldn't say what they were, but
I'm so excited.
Are they both launching at this? We'll let you mention what they are, but are they both launching at the same time then?
There's about a 6-month gap between them, but the announcements of the books were relatively close together.
And knowing how fast David is, I assume they're probably both done, right?
Oh, they're all done. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
So Shannon, we had David on for like one Halloween episode, and he was like, "I'll just work on a page while you guys are, And within the hour of the episode, he had like a perfectly finished page that he started just blank, and I was like, "I hate you." It's like he's so fast. Anyhow, I'm not really, but
I know, for that reason. But it's also very infuriating because as an artist myself, you're like, how do you do that? I can't do that.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Let's get into it. So you guys have 2 new books coming out.
There's one. The first one is called Kraken. Give some of the backstory, but it's a 100-page story, and this is one Shannon had brought to me early on. It was like, hey, I had this idea, and blah blah blah, and I just fell in love with it because it's out of my wheelhouse. So it's 1930s, very historical in a way, but it's monsters. Obviously, it's called Kraken. You can see where it's going. But there's monsters, it's action, it's Indiana Jones. And for me, I was like, that's a side of my childhood I absolutely love. I get to do some adventure stuff. And animation, but not like more adult adventure, pulpy kind of stuff. And for me, thank you, Shannon, for bringing me on, because I do feel like that book pushed me a little further than it helped my art quite a bit, because I'm actually drawing historical, like boats and buildings and stuff that I don't normally draw. It's not those aren't monsters, but it pushed me, and I actually had so much fun with the book, and I'm so proud. But I'll let Shannon give kind of the brief synopsis on it.
Oh no, I mean, it was so much fun working with Dave too, because as an artist, I know like how fast he is, but also too, if I just mention that it's this sort of boat from 1932, he's got to go look it up. So as a person who's used to like art directing for my day job, I was like, here's all the reference, so you don't have to go searching them out.
Oh wow. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm working on a historical fiction book right now, and if the writer was doing that, I'd be way happier. Yeah. Anyhow.
You made it easy.
So
Here's
much,
links.
and Dave knows he's got the freedom to go tweak it, but at least we have a starting point. He's not just having to like, read there's a boat and then go spend 2 days trying to figure out what kind of boats would have been in the South Pacific and I'm friends with Kevin Conran, who created Sky Captain. I love
that.
That's a
movie.
great
Does
movie.
not get the respect it deserves.
Yeah.
And I've worked with him on a ton of projects for TV film. Dave Stevens was a buddy. God bless him. And so I've always loved these pulp heroes, but it was just in Indiana Jones, obviously, that had all the supernatural and the horror mixed in.
Yeah, my favorite's still 3. That's my favorite Indiana Jones. So
a
good.
lot of people. I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, not everybody, will back us
I
on
love
that
them
one,
all
but
equally. They have different part. It's like a different part in your life.
Yeah.
I'm more into the standard pulp. I'll go to Raiders.
That's
I'm more
great.
into fun supernatural. I'll go to Temple. It's like
Raiders is the best for like. Oh, there's so many good they're all really good. There's so much good quippy dialogue in that.
When I teach like filmmaking classes, we use Raiders.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a perfect movie.
Yeah.
But, again, we all love stuff for different reasons.
Yeah.
That's what's fun about this. I mean, I watched plenty of full moon movies back in the VHS days, and I'm not going to say any of those were up for any Oscars that I can think of, but they sure made a weekend fun.
Yeah. I think that's great. So it's got like a pulpy kind of aesthetic. Like what's the plot of
Kraken? It's basically the idea is you were following an adventurer. This is already an Indiana Jones kind of a character. He was on the high seas. There's babes galore. The good girl bad girl scenario, all that stuff. And then something happens where he goes missing for 3 years, and he gets pulled into this other realm where all these creatures are escaping from. And he is transformed. It takes him 3 years and every bit of like arcane knowledge he can track down from this other place to make his way back. But he's not the same person he was. And because of what happened to him and everything he saw over there, he's so determined to keep it from happening here. But it's in a world where people don't believe there's monsters. So it's
here I'm gonna cheat and show.
Yeah,
there we go.
I know it's a little blown out, but that's kind of the cover.
Oh yeah, we got a great Dave did a cover, and then Mignola did one for us for the direct line.
That's a get. That's pretty amazing.
That was pretty fun, but throwing in all the stuff we love. Tales of the Golden Monkey, anything pulp that we love, we rep with. It's in there. But through a very, strong monster lens.
And much like you were saying, like Jack Davis and Mad Magazine stuff, I love hiding things in the background and stuff. So there's always like little hidden things throughout all these books we're doing, because it's just like these are the things we love.
Well, and we're world building too, so it's kind of fun where Dave and I are working on multiple projects, and I'll be like, oh, we need to go back 3 pages and sneak this in the back of Kraken, so it makes sense when we cut to the Spectres and you see this thing. Because I'm a big fan of like the audience.
As you're talking, Shannon, I'll just share some.
Oh, here, let me show it.
Just put it in there, and like if people notice it, it's great. And if they lose it, then it's not important for following the story, but it's a nice little Easter egg.
They released. They just got little monkey going crazy with the gun. It's just,
okay, and it's a monkey with a fez. I mean, how much better can you get?
It's like, again, crazy stuff happening all at once, and right. I want to show another. I know it was released. I don't want to show any. It hasn't been
one
released
of many is kind of how we looked at it, but it's a very self-contained story.
That's
and again, it's very Raiders where we get into Nazis, except now we got monster Nazis and crazy stuff happening there. So
that makes me happy. One of my favorite horror movies that, well, to me it seems recent, but it's not, The Dead Snow. That movie. Oh, yeah. Just where it was just Nazi zombies. I'm like, okay, that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
I want to see those guys die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But this book started for me. I think it was we were in the pandemic, had started, and I was finishing up another project, and Shannon had brought this up, and I've told you guys on the show before how I work. Like, this was another book that was done primarily in bed.
Yeah,
because I get up, I draw, I work better, just completely relaxed, laid out, like a little kid with a board on my belly. That's pretty much how this whole book was drawn. And then I get stuff done early, and then I send it to Shannon, and early in the morning, and it was just a fun process doing it like that. And then that continued on to our next book.
So real quick before you jump to the next book, so Shannon, you were mentioning that you guys are like world building. So this is like a one-off kind of one and done story, but there's a bunch of Easter eggs that like will continue on to like a broader kind of world that you're building.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us on this are in favor of being fans of Mignola, and I really loved what Mike did with the Hellboy universe starting off.
Yeah.
Here's a story. It's great. It's self-contained. If you join me for the next one, then you'll see where this story, and it's really sort of just all flowing out of Mike's likes and his loves.
Yeah.
Right. He's interested in, which either you're interested in too, or it introduces you to the stuff that got him there that now you're interested in because you were exposed to it in the comics. So it's kind of the approach we're taking with this stuff, where we're building separate things, but there is a sort of a loose thread that connects them. And if you're along for the whole adventure, you're going to see the thread. And if you just happen to pick up Kraken or just happen to pick up Spectres, you're going to leave satisfied with it being a one and done story.
I love that as a template too, because I feel like as a creative, that's just like, I remember loving that a lot about Hellboy and that whole universe that Mignola kind of built, because it's like it kind of allows for him to go anywhere he wants.
Yeah.
But it still kind of does a self-contained universe.
Yeah. Even with MonsterForge, Shannon and I are like creating a universe of characters. So even though Kraken's 1930s pulp, Spectres is a little more modern, there's still paths that cross and tie these worlds together. They clearly, these different events, different time periods, but in the same world. And that's part of the fun too, is because you just keep on building and building and building onto this world that you're creating, and it just makes it really fun.
I love it. Okay, now we should talk probably Spectres. Sorry, one more thing. Shannon, it's just funny that you mentioned you were part of Image at the beginning, like back in the day, because when I was like in junior high, I was telling my wife about this because my son has to take these lessons at the local pool. And right near the local pool, there's like 5 areas that we drove past that used to be comic shops at that time, because it was like the speculative boom. And so comic shops were just popping up. And as a kid who was a comic nerd, it was like heaven. I was like, oh my gosh, there's comic stores everywhere. Everyone knows how great these are. And I remember going to like, I think it was Jim Lee's studio. What was it? Extreme?
No.
What's up?
Wildstorm,
that was it. And they did a tour, and they showed up in like limos and stuff. It was insane. Like, it was a signing. That was a different time for comics. Like, that was an interesting time. Yeah. And I remember McFarlane having his own hockey team and like a Spawn mobile and stuff. Yeah, that's a wild. But anyway, I was trying to describe it to my wife, she was following manga and stuff at that time, but not comics, and I was trying to just explain, like, no, it was crazy. Like, everybody thought it was like the gold rush or something.
Yeah,
it was crazy because
everything had a foil cover.
Yeah.
But the printing, there's a lot of people who knock parts of that era, and I think justifiably some of it, but at the same time, like the printing of comics from that era, really impacted all future comics. Like, now you have comics that have book covers and cool effects and stuff on the covers.
I think the Image guys and both and like McFarlane on the toy side don't get enough credit for like making the rest of the industry step up to a level of quality.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you loved it or not, I'm not going to argue, because I was there. It was good for me, but the paper quality, coloring in Photoshop, all the stuff that they were doing that was sort of groundbreaking and ahead of the curve, like the rest of the industry ended up going, hey, we got to do this too, because our stuff isn't doing this. And for the fans, it was a win. And the same thing on the toys. I remember being in the Extreme bullpen and Todd coming through to show us the Spawn prototype to say, hey, I'm going to be making toys. And we just thought it was the coolest thing. And I was also doing freelance for other toy companies, and they were all like, this is ridiculous. Why is he spending this money? Nobody cares. Toys are for kids. And it changed the entire game.
It did. Yeah.
They didn't see. So to me, that was always kind of inspirational being around those guys. They were good for me, good for my career, because it showed me like, hey, you can push past what's expected. You don't have to just stay in this lane.
Yeah.
New lanes. You know?
That's brilliant. And it's funny because I was a real Spawn nerd as a kid, like real, like huge, like any issue he appeared in as a character, I'd buy like second issues and stuff. And I remember buying that toy and just being like, what the heck? Like that first Spawn toy. I agree with you, Shannon. I think that literally revolutionized the whole toy industry, because prior to that, I don't think a lot of the younger generation know that like you used to buy like a Luke Skywalker toy, his face would look nothing like Luke Skywalker. Like they didn't have like airbrushing and stuff on the toys. And then McFarlane comes in and it's like these crazy molds and like fine airbrushing. Yeah, that's definitely a true thing. All right, sorry.
A Sideshow or a Tweeterhead or any of these other like high-end companies that make these amazing toy statues. And
so they were sculpted back then, right? Like it wasn't like ZBrush and all this and being able to do 3D printing now. Back then, that detail was sculpted.
Yeah.
You know,
but what's interesting is the mainstream toy companies really shifted because of that, you know, and that's really kind of amazing to have that much of an impact. Yeah. And it's also cool for fans of monsters, because like prior to that, if you wanted a really cool like monster toy, you had to get the build, you know, like the Dracula one, that it's just a bunch of white plastic and you have to paste it together and then custom paint it.
Kits and make it resin kits and all that, because of they did all the cool monsters and stuff, you know. And then I remember Sideshow Collectibles, you know, they were putting out monsters, and then you know, I was picking those up before they were hundreds and hundreds of dollars each. But McFarlane did a whole, you know, run of the classic monsters and stuff, and they were fantastic. I love them all.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. Okay. Also, anyhow, McFarlane's great. He introduced me to indie comics, Cerebrus.
Sorry, I'm just gonna show this because I want to draw in it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So this is like Monster Hunters. Oh, here. So these are. Shannon had asked, you know, like, hey, draw some Monster Hunters. What would you do? And I drew these cool characters, and then, you know, it comes back and it's like, okay, I wrote a story around these characters. And,
cool. So you guys are collaborating in that way too, where that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a little this one was you know, Kraken he brought to me, and it was already kind of thought out, but with Spectres it was kind of like we're kind of figuring it out. You know, he had the base story, but we're having a lot of fun with that, because he'll say, hey, I need a character for this. I'll design a character and I'll put something in there that might have a little bit of a, you know, a backstory to it, and he'll write around that, you know.
That's awesome.
And it's a really fun series. It's been a while actually since I finished this, because this one I've been working on for a while, and we've actually done another book that we can't talk about yet. That's another 100-page book that I had just finished, but I went back and read this and fell in love with the characters all over again. So Shannon and I want to do it Spectres 2 sometime. So, but
greenlit.
But both of these books are. This one comes out early next year, but and I'll let Shannon talk more about this too. But we were fortunate enough to get Titan Publishing. Titan Comics is putting these two books out, which is, you know, they're huge. And it's pretty fantastic to have like a publisher like that, you know, having our backs and being able to put these books out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's going to also, like, I would imagine, help a lot with distribution, you know, because that's going to be your big monster to fight, you know.
And really, it's like, you know, that's kind of what having a publisher versus doing like a crowdfunding or indie comic, you know, where you're marketing yourself, having a publisher behind you has a lot of that already there. But for them, they already got quality books. They already got, you know, they don't have anything to prove. They've already made great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
for us, it's an honor to be a part of that. And
Yeah.
I'll let Shannon talk more on that. But,
No, I was just gonna say, and Dave's 100% right. Like, and I'm sure you guys and everybody watching this right now knows, like, making comics is hard. So when you find people who are like, "This is awesome," that's a nice little energy that you can then channel into, like, "Oh, I feel good about myself, and I feel good about this project. I'm gonna go make a new one."
Yeah.
So instead of trying to just place something somewhere, we're trying to partner up with people that are excited about the same stuff we're excited about. And that's what's been so great about the Titan relationship. Because again, the Spectre is kind of, Dave's familiar with, I did a book at Dark Horse that was a MonsterForge book with Tom Mandrake drawing, and Steve Niles co-wrote with me. And it was a totally different world, totally different, kind of thing, but it had monster hunters. So when I talked to Dave about this, I'm like, I want to do another one, but it's got to be different than what we did. And so when he just came back with those awesome characters, it was so fun. I was like, all right, I've got it now. I don't feel like,
because if you see, the girl has like a Gatling gun that shoots syringes for her arm, and it was just weird stuff. I got this crazy humanoid guy in the back, and
I love that humanoid design, like the big red eyes.
It's just kind of hitting these classic silhouettes and just kind of having fun with it.
Because sometimes staring at that blank page, you're like, all right, I got to come up with something, whether it's drawing or whether it's writing.
Yeah.
So when Dave throws something awesome down, then all of a sudden the blank page goes away, and I'm like, I've got 7 years of stories for this. Right?
Yeah, it's giving you a spark, right? Because it's like there's some material to juice the imagination, Yeah.
And it happens while you're drawing it too. I'll get to page 60 and go, okay, now I got these characters figured out. Now I got to go back to page 1 and tweak some drawings or some things as I'm still trying to figure the character out as you go.
Oh, that's one question I don't know if we've asked you, David. How do you avoid the eternal revision? With that kind of thing, where you get later on, you get better at the characters, you're like, I need to do a second pass. Like, where do you put the stop? Like, how do you decide?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's like, well, my stuff's kind of cartoony. It's kind of off a little bit on purpose, and perspective's a little funky. I don't know. I just once the gray hair starts, you start getting either a little confidence in what you do.
Yeah,
that you kind of know what works based on the reactions you've got, but also just like for me being a storyboard artist, right?
Yeah.
We talked about this before, but you're not taking these drawings to completion. You're not inking them usually. And, you kind of learn your shorthands that work for you. But honestly, as art goes, and I'll even go back to Scott's book on this, like The Young and the Dead, I can obviously see a progression in your art from issue 1 to issue 5, right? But I know they're the same characters. It still holds the same style.
Yeah.
I actually really love seeing that. I was really excited to read issue 5 because it's like, oh, wow, these characters, they're a lot more solidified, and the angles, I could see where you were taking some chances.
And for somebody who doesn't create like 100-page graphic novels in a week. But I actually did go back and I did some George Lucasing and to try to make them look a little.
I'm saying all this stuff, but I do it too, Scott. It's like I did go back in, and it's like, okay, you're figuring out your shorthand. There's sometimes or maybe I did too much shorthand. I got to go back in and change stuff. Shannon's always catching. There's like, okay, I see you added this new moment, but that does affect page 3, 4, and 5 where you did this. It's like, oh, idiot. Yeah. So, then it goes back. But, that's where we work well together. Because
I think us both being directors for our day jobs, that helps because we're used to being
Yeah.
Understandable. It's important fix, and that one's not. Just let it go. Nobody's got it.
Right.
Counting how many bolts is on some guy's shoe.
Yeah.
In the story. I think Robert Rodriguez had a good quote about that. Like, if you're watching El Mariachi and you're noticing that the iron is up in one scene and then down and then up again, it's like, I've lost you. You're not paying attention to the story. So I think there's a lot of freedom with what Dave does. But also I was going to say, David, something that we do that is, I think, a benefit of us working in animation is we have pitch Bibles that are done before we start the comics.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we can't change things, but we know this is this person's visual, this is their backstory, this is them, this is the kind of vehicles they drive. we've got a lot of stuff that's figured out. And I get, having been work for hire, why you don't do that when you're on a Marvel book or something, because you're like, I'm not getting paid for that. I don't know in Deadpool. I'm just going to make it up as I go. So a lot of that is them coming in when you're drawing a Deadpool, because stuff's been figured out the years before you. So you already know what these characters look like. When you're world building, you do kind of have to take that time for your own project. It benefits us, so we do it.
Right. I find that very interesting because, like you said, like I didn't do any of that for the previous comic, but I'm kind of thinking about maybe doing something like that for the next one. But because I think I could take that and work it into some extras when I finally get the whole thing published and do a really cool thing like that. But it's interesting, and you can tell it's probably from you guys coming from animation that you created a pitch Bible before you. Because
well, even both these books, Scott, the art that I showed, both of those covers were the first images that I would do of the book.
Really?
It's like I didn't go back and do the cover after doing the book. I did those early on, one to help set the look, but it's also for me to make sure I kind of stay in that look. And if I do want to deviate, I'm telling myself I got to go back into the cover, obviously, and adjust. But it's also, the cover is a great selling point. So I did them as promo pieces, but they ended up being strong enough for us that we felt they should be covers.
Yeah, that's cool, because it also,
that's kind of like what Shannon's saying. That's part of our pitch deck, right? Like the cover is part of your pitch.
Yeah,
and that kind of sets the tone, I think, for
I like that. I like that idea because it just shows the. I think if you're using your original concept as the cover, it just, because that's where all the ideas come at once.
Exactly.
It's like all right there, and it's
all the spontaneity is there.
Exactly.
All the creativity, and I mean, it might be different with a monthly book, right? Because a monthly, you got a certain story or a certain scene that whole issue is focused around, and you might need to do that. But for a graphic novel, for me, it's the movie poster. What's the movie poster of the movie I want to make,
Right.
I like that as a concept. Because like the current book I'm on, we did a pitch deck of a sample of 10 pages of a key scene in our script, but it's we didn't do the cover, but it is helpful to have that all your character designs worked out and kind of know what style you're going for too. Because for me, David's able to just work super fast. So, but for me, I'm very slow artist. And so I need to know what style I'm going to be using for what I'm doing. Cause it's I alternate styles a lot with my art. And so that's helped a lot. Cause it's kept me geared,
How's working digitally now?
I love it. I mean, it's not as fun. In my, I can't wait when I'm done with this. The next book I do is going to be traditionally inked again. Cause I just
speeding up, or is it
revisions are easier. That's the biggest difference that I've noticed is the thing that Shannon was mentioning, the quote about they won't notice it changes hands or something, but I am a bad artist in the sense that every once in a while, I've been doing sequential art for a while, but I still find that I'll, have a building with 3 windows in the background, and then I forget to do the 3rd window, and it's most of the time that you can slide on that, but there are some times where it's pretty glaring, where
comics is probably one of the most forgiving mediums.
Yeah,
with those kind of things, because you're only getting snippets of time, and something could have happened between those 2 panels of time, right? So,
but if I have a panel where I had a wine glass in somebody's hand and it's in the wrong hand, it's a real easy fix when it's digital. Whereas if you do that mistake, traditionally it's kind of a pain in the butt. I mean, you can still digitally.
Josh, I'd just be there was that passage of time. He went to a different.
What you don't know is between this, a year has passed.
One of the things that I always talk about when I'm teaching comics, especially people who are getting into it, is just not to just beware of the world building trap, because you get into that world building and you never actually create it. But I think once you reach to the point where you guys are in and for me, for my next project, once you reach a certain point, then you'll be able to produce the book no matter what. You won't get caught.
Well, it's because we made those mistakes, right?
Yeah.
We've done those things. We fell into our own tropes, and and we've done the things that we can see are big time wasters, or whatever. But like you're saying, yeah, with world building, for me, part of doing the book is the world building.
Yeah.
So I don't have to overthink because I feel like, I don't know, I used to just have fun with friends when I was younger. We'd have like these get-togethers where we would just take a week, draw one comic page. We get together on Friday, we each share our traditional page, we read it out loud and kind of act them out, and then it's like, and then we talk about, what would be funny, what would happen next, and then it's like, okay, now I gotta go take that and do something completely different than anything anyone had said, and to continue this story. And we would do this, and it was just, I don't know, it's just so much fun. And again, that's part of the world building. It's like, I overthink all this. It takes the fun out because it's like, I know how to get from A to Z. I got B, C, D, E, F, G. I like to leave some of that stuff open and not married to it, so that I get to D and it's like D's actually wanting you to skip over to L.
Yeah.
So you do that because that might make it a more interesting story, or if that's making sense. But it's
it does.
Not overthinking it to where and again, it's different. I would think if you're a writer like Shannon, I'm just talking for me as when I'm doing my comics, that if you overthink it, then it's kind of like I've told the story and I don't find the excitement in drawing it because I know this next scene's gonna be boring, or you know what I mean. It's like you get these little things and these little crutches. It would be different if I'm actually the guy at the typewriter typing, because that is the way you tell a story is writing it all out.
Yeah, I think there's all different kinds of storytelling, and I think you have to have that conversation with yourself, like again, I've done a lot of historical comics or set in a historical period, and for Kraken, I wasn't getting out the mileage calculator with how much gas a P-40 airplane boat could to travel from. I mean, they still haven't found Amelia Earhart. So if I start stressing about actually how far these islands are apart from each other and that really this plane could never make it.
Yeah.
Yes, there is one or two fans that are probably out there that have all that. I'm not writing it for them.
Exactly.
Hopefully I can put them over with some of the other stuff. I went to the Jack Kirby exhibit at the Skirball, which I highly recommend.
Oh, is that up right now?
Oh, it's out right now. I've got another month. There's a page from Fantastic Four, and I'm blanking on the issue, but it's Silver Surfer falling. He's lost his power, and he's just falling down towards the top of a building in New York. And it's the very last panel is him sitting there in his boards next to him. He's unconscious. Modern approach mentally would be like, I'll get a photo of this building and I'll just photocopy it bigger as he gets closer because he's going to land on that building. Jack didn't go that route. Every single time you're looking down, the New York is a different building, but it doesn't matter because he's creating these designs that your eye is always tracking with the surfer on the way down because you're following the surfer. Like you're emotionally invested.
Yeah.
So I think like it's a completely different approach than other artists, and it's not for everybody, but you got to figure out what kind of storyteller you are. And then once you figure that out, it's off to the races.
No, I love that. Another good example of that's I can't do an Artcasters without mentioning Chris Ware because he's my favorite cartoonist. But there's this panel that like a bunch of friends of mine who are cartoonists like know this exact panel in Jimmy Corrigan where it's a tall scene with like a little Superman character at the top of the building. It's like a tall panel that's the full page, and it's two panels. The page is two panels, and it's this beautifully like measured out. Perfect perspective building. And then the next panel, Superman like splatted on the ground, like he had jumped off the building and there's like an ambulance and stuff. And it's the exact same picture of the building, but if you look at it, it's like he redrew the entire, like he just drew it again just because he could. And that's one of my favorite things in cartooning is like, I love that. I don't like recycling panels, even if you're repeating. I feel like redraw it. I love that. So things like that I think are great with different cartoonist vibes and stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes
kudos to Chris Ware, but I ain't doing that.
Yeah, there'll be a few times I repeat where it's like sometimes I want like when I do a lot of repeated panels, it's usually because a character all of a sudden has an emotional change.
Yeah, and it's like a pattern, right?
And I want that emotional change to be the focus, not the line work and stuff. So sometimes I'll cut and paste. for that kind of stuff. And even on Kraken, you'll notice a lot of vehicles and stuff are a little bit more solid than they usually are. I went crazy because vehicles are tough for me. Cars, planes, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's some really dynamic plane drawings in there too.
Because a weird place. I actually got Cinema 4D and built 3D models because there I could actually, for me, doing 3D models was like Legos, where I could build it and then I could just turn them into the angle I want and then look at the screen and draw it.
Yeah.
Where otherwise, because my stuff's pretty organic and loosey-goosey, I never draw a straight line. So then doing that on top of at least having a solid foundation. But, my wife was just laughing because it's like I spent, 2 days building a model of an airplane just so I say, but then I draw the stupid airplane in like a few seconds and it kind of didn't matter. But that's just how my brain works. I think just building the CG model, building an engine or something, it's like I'm at least seeing how the pieces work.
Yes.
And how they connect each other so that I can draw it without looking at it, if that makes sense.
No, I understand that entirely. I feel like I'm the same way with backgrounds where I really, I can draw figures without reference pretty easily, but with backgrounds and stuff, I need like visual data just to like disassemble something and rebuild it just to know how it works,
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of that same mentality and just, it's just another tool in order, it's like having a mannequin figure, but it was just, it was just kind of funny that I would spend all this time, we're talking about how I draw fast and stuff, but yet I'll spend 2 days building a model so that I can draw fast. If that makes sense.
No, that's brilliant because it's like your analytical mind kind of building that library in your head,
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. If I don't know how a ship looks, like Shannon had a lot of ship references and he knows the ships and knows their names. And
that was in the Navy. I wanted to make sure when he read the comic, he was like, all right, we got this right.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I love that, Shannon, though, because like the novel I'm working on, it takes place with the Brownings, like Robert Barrett Browning and Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and it's like it's this weird, pretty close to true story from history, where we're filling in gaps, and that's only like fiction in it. But anyhow, there's a scene where they're traveling from England to Italy by boat. And the writer didn't mention what kind of boat. So I literally spent like half a week like researching what kind of boat would have made that travel and stuff. And then it turns out it's this like weird like pre-steamship, like really fun to draw. It had like a little turning wheel on it and stuff. It's a crazy ship. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, you don't like, especially when you're doing like, you have to do like super accurate historical stuff. It's like you don't expect those to be hurdles at first, and then you're like, oh yeah, when they turn on a light, like they didn't have lights, so it's like a gas light.
The scene of like Shanghai in 1930. It's like, okay, I could certainly make that up, but that's not doing justice to anything. I actually went out of my way and did a lot of research and finding old photographs on,
Isn't that kind of fun though?
It is, because I'm seeing things again that's I never had really an interest in Shanghai 1930, but now I kind of do, because you're seeing all these kind of gambling dens and smoking dens, but also there's docks, like the whole infrastructure of their society is through these ports. And then you throw in, World War II soldiers from different nations at war, all in this one place. It really became interesting. And, Shannon gave me a lot of reference, and then that helps me quite a bit. And then I just go out and do some of my own researching too. Thankfully with the internet, you can find almost anything these days.
Yeah, back in the morgue days.
Yeah, like, to the library and looking up Shanghai 1930. It's like you're not going to find too many photos or.
Yeah.
It is interesting though, just since this is a Artcasters thing here, and my brain switching from my writing mode to art mode. You used to have the morgue where you're like, this is a great image. I'm going to cut it out and put it in my filing cabinet in case I ever have to draw things. And all the Neil Adams and the guys I knew early on, like they were the ones who stressed like, hey, get yourself a filing cabinet, collect this stuff, because it was pre-internet. Then it got really good with like, hey, I can find stuff on Google. Now it's getting weird because you go on the internet and it's just all AI hodgepodge.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know enough, you don't know that that is not how things look.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to be a little bit informed. Where it used to be, you could go on there and get informed. So I'm for all the young people watching, like, hey, you know,
I fear for the future generations because there's going to be so much misinformation out there because
there was
just AI that doesn't know.
Shanghai 1930.
You know, it is a shame Corey's not on the show because, like, the second we mention AI, we'd have.
AI won't tell you if it doesn't know something; it'll just make it up.
Yeah,
just like
that's the most interesting thing to me with AI, where it's starting to like eat itself, like where it initially was really good at kind of pulling and ripping off artists like myself and you guys, and like, you know, stealing our images and then like mimicking that kind of stuff. But then like it started to steal its own images. And so it started creating these like really distorted realities like that are even less accurate than it was starting to become. And it's doing that with facts too, like Scott was saying, where they've run all these tests and they found out just to please but to just fulfill the query, it'll just make stuff up. If it can't answer it, it's like, I'll just make something up. And that's
scary.
It's scary, but it's also encouraging.
There's a character from my new book that I'm considering naming Kid Krylon because he's a graffiti artist, and I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anyone out there like that. So I Googled it just to see, and AI comes up. It says Kid Krylon is probably a reference to kid products produced by Krylon Paint Company, which is not a thing, and it's just like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Well, then you know you're safe.
Yeah, that's true. Kid Krylon is a good name for a graffiti.
Yeah,
I'm so excited about that project, Scott. It's it's hip hop.
These guys.
That's true.
I want to know more about specters.
Yes, let's get into specters. You said ghost hunters, and we kind of diverged way off topic because I'm horrible as a host. So I'm teasing, but I'm teasing myself. But yeah, so Spectre. Let's get into it. What are the ghost hunters? So you sent him the image of these characters. What's kind of the premise of Spectre?
Yeah, I mean, what I tried to do with the monster hunters was figure out, like, well, how did these individuals come together that Dave has provided me these awesome visuals for? And so the idea was that the lead character has been hurt, damaged by the darkness, by the monsters. And so he basically goes on this one-man quest to find out, like, what happened, who killed my parents, all this sort of this backstory. Turns out he's from a long line of people that have been doing this. That's when he meets Debbie. That's why she's only got one arm. She's also a victim. So we've got two victims who are very driven. They're very in sync. And that's them discovering Ollie, the big monster guy, who is also a victim. And so it's the three of them very personally motivated to go prevent this from ever happening to anybody else. And so that was sort of like the crux of where we got to the beginning of it. And then it was figuring out the plot, which was kind of fun.
And this one gets kind of dark in a lot of respects. Like, even though I know my art can sometimes be cartoony or in that kind of way, but I felt the story actually gets pretty dark. Even though we're bringing all the cool stuff, the action, the monsters, the visual and stuff, but you know, the story itself is very poignant and gets, you know, pretty kind of emotional in areas with these characters as we're building them, and you know, we also got cults and magic, and you know, there's just so much fun stuff. So if any fans of mine who like my monster art and stuff, I think this book's gonna, you know, deliver for you with a lot of cool stuff in there.
Well, you had me at Colts because I'm obsessed with Colts. So
yeah, like I kind of am too. I love all that.
We were a little ahead of the curve because we were trying to lean into, like, well, what's the most evil thing out there? And it's really just the rich elite that are never happy with the power that they already have or the wealth they already have. So actually the true monsters, the thing that we're uncovering through all of this, is the people who are controlling most of the darkness to benefit themselves. So that's where all the cults and secret societies and Illuminati and everything play in with awesome Dave Hartman ghost monsters that are flying out of the orifices.
I love it, and I love that premise for the ghost hunters too, giving them kind of a purpose for their like a real personal investment in hunting down the monsters too.
Yeah.
Oh man, that I can't wait to see that.
In a very sort of like, it's not the focus. It's not an artsy fartsy book, and I love those. But that's not what we're doing. But I did want there to be some sort of message mixed in with all the high adventure and monsters and ghosts and action packery.
Yeah, and that one's the first quarter of 2026.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah. So, and they're both, like I said, 100 pages, and then we got another one loaded in.
We came out of order because we did Spectres first,
right?
And there was a lot of the world building that we did that allowed us to do Kraken, because in Spectres, going back to the whole family in the 1930s, you find out Kraken and our lead and Spectre's father knew each other. So again,
but it's funny, Shannon, is like we did some of that. We addressed some of the stuff in Kraken, but then I'm also going back into the Spectres, because it's like we did some of the stuff in Kraken to reflect Spectres, where I'm like, oh, but now that's something we can reflect back into Spectres. Like it's building that world and putting those Easter eggs and stuff that makes it so fun, and it makes it even better when it's all under one publisher like Titan and stuff. So
I think that's amazing, and for me, I love big properties that already exist. I'm a Star Wars nerd like all the rest, and I think Andor is probably one of the best things I've seen in years. And that's an existing property and just a creative, really going a direction that hasn't been done yet. And I think that works well for movie making and for comics and stuff like that. But to me, it just as a creative, like I'm always interested in. Like, I'm not interested in somebody's run on Spider-Man. Like, I mean, I kind of am, but it's like I want to see their own characters, their own unique individual creations and stuff. And so I just think it's great that MonsterForge is doing that, is like building this whole world and kind of your own new characters and kind of adding something to the landscape rather than just kind of re-pumping out the same thing, over and over again. And like to me, that's where my passion's at. That's the kind of books I want to buy, so that's great. And I think our audience too. So.
And it's just having fun, we're just reaching into our inner child. That's why, being in animation and stuff, and even with Shannon, I've shied away from comics so many times, is that they're so time consuming, right? And when you're working in TV and animation, you're constantly working, and when you're not working, you're hustling to get the next working gig. And comics kind of takes a lot of time away from that. For me, unfortunately, the pandemic kind of was a time where a lot of us weren't working, and I still needed an outlet to be creative, and it worked out.
Now we were in our cars driving back and forth within Los Angeles for 3 hours. That was
right. Yeah.
Am I wrong? I thought the animation business was doing all right because that's all you could do.
It was
things where you didn't need people in person.
But there was that lull at the beginning,
right?
Because you needed all the live action to shut down before they decided, oh wait, there's animation. That's how we can keep the shows going, and then they buy a lot of it. But
that was definitely the busiest I've ever been in my career.
Once it got going, I was telling you all the shows I was working on, and it's like.
But yeah, there was that freak out phase when all the shipping closed down, and pretty much every industry was like, "What are we going to do?"
Everything was shut down, and it was like, but that again. I don't even know how long that was, but it felt like an eternity for me. So I felt like I needed to do something.
Yeah.
The comics kind of worked out, but I also fell in love with comics all over again.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Yeah. It's so much fun. And I like to do a lot of color work. So I always think it's like the just when I thought I was out kind of thing with comics, where it's just, it's like your first love, right? Like
we finally got Corey back too into comics. Like Scott and I have been bugging him for a while, and now he's picked it up again, and we're like, yes.
And I told myself after I wrapped up my last comic that I was going to take a long break from comics, but that That did
Can't quit
Yeah.
comics.
I'm jumping back into it again.
It's just too much fun.
It is. And it's such it is the best medium. It's the best medium in my
think you
mind.
said it
When you were
to Josh earlier that you're creating. It could be a one-man band if it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
And you're able to take something to completion. You know,
Yep.
from art, you don't need a sound editor. You don't need a visual effects person. You can draw your explosions. It's like
Yeah.
you don't need other people if you don't have to. And as far as an artist goes, or a writer, and that's part of the draw to it. I think is that you're the director, you're the cinematographer, you're the writer, you're in control of your product and how that story is told. And that's part of the draw. But there's also the other side of it where I kind of saw myself as that person with comics, but then me and Shannon hooked up, and I'm just like falling in love with his writing and having fun.
Yeah.
With these characters and all that, and it's kind of been a really good match. And I don't know, we're just having so much fun doing it.
Yeah. That's amazing. Shannon.
Shannon was going to say something
Yeah,
a couple times.
I was about to ask.
One of you was bringing up the collaboration at the beginning of
Oh.
this, and I think that's part of the joy is it's different every time. And my original comics that I did, I was drawing Deadpool after coming home from work, working on Marvel stuff all day for animation while I was freelancing for Toy Biz, designing all the Marvel toys. And
Yeah.
my wife was like, that's a lot of Marvel. I know. And I'm like, well, I chased it for so long and I'm here. So I was like, all right, you're right. I'm going to start doing some of my own stuff. And I didn't have other people to collaborate with. So I was like, I guess I need to letter this thing that I drew. I guess I need to color this thing that I drew.
Right.
And so, like, I learned how to do all this stuff, but it's a lot of work.
Yes.
And
It is.
over the years since, I've been been an editor at DC and other companies, and it's so different every single time I do a comic, depending on the people I'm working with or the company I'm working with. And so working with Dave has been great because we're very much in alignment on the kinds of stuff we like. I know Dave's doing projects with other people, and I'm doing some other projects with other people, but what's so fun about working with Dave is it's a lot of just like tossing something over the fence, and then it comes back and you're like, well, that's different than I thought, but this is awesome. So I'm changing mine and I'm going to toss it back. And so for us, it's just been sort of like, all right, well, we're done now, but I love this feeling. What's the next thing? What are we going
Yeah.
I know this sounds weird, but to me, it goes back. And again, I'm all about trying to capture my youth. I love being the little kid in a big chair with crayons and sort of this, working with Shannon or whoever you're collabing with. It's kind of like that. Hey, can my friend sleep over tonight, Mom?
Yeah.
It's
Wouldn't
like,
it be cool if you had rockets, that kind of thing?
we're
Yeah.
gonna stay up all night and draw comic books and make stories. And it's like, look what I drew. And it's like, oh, that's awesome. And then look what I drew. And it's kind of that kind of feeling where, I'm making the books, I'm having fun, I'm doing what the fans want to see, but ultimately I'm just doing what I want to see and have fun doing it, And
We would have been in the
I
same
just love having a
squad
book in my hands,
as
even if
kids.
no one else sees it, just that I have a book in my hands of my work. There's something so gratifying about that feeling.
Yeah.
Well,
and a new story out there that, you guys are building collaboratively. And that kind of sounds like I play music with this band, No Saboteurs, right? And then I do solo stuff too. But it's like the guys that I'm doing that with, I've played with for 20 something. I mean, we played together since we were teenagers. And there's something that happens in a room and it happens with no other musicians. Like, I can collaborate with other musicians, but there's something with them where it's just like it's a very organic, without sounding too LA, because I don't want to be like, the second I mention improv, like, we're going to get invited to like 5 improv sessions by a friend where you're like, I don't want to go to your improv school, dude. But it is kind of like improv in the sense that, it's your yes ending, and there's people who are really good at that where you yes end and you get great results. And then there's some people where you're like, I can't yes end with you. Like, I can't do that. So when you find those people, I think creatively it's really good to like collaborate and get, if you're getting fuel from each other, that's a really good sign, Yeah. And it sounds like that kind of environment where
I
you're.
think it shows in the work on both of our ends, And
Oh yeah. Well, and I can tell you're excited about it, David, because it looks like very much like your personal work. It's just it's got that passion.
and that's
Well,
why
and
I'm
that helps
excited
me
about
because
it
I am a
because I
fan
have.
of David. So like I know like what I want to see him draw. I'm like, well, I'm gonna put that in the book.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like Shannon does cater some of the writing to me and stuff. But okay, I've worked on lots of different comic projects and even some superhero stuff and things, but they didn't get me excited, and that's kind of why I steered away from comics. I kind of just it wasn't fun, right?
Yeah.
For me. Where I found, hey, storyboarding, which I didn't know I wanted to be in an animation, but hey, I'm getting to tell a story and I can do it quickly. And, you don't get bogged down with all this other stuff where now that I'm working with Shannon, it's like, it's fun again. Comics is fun because it's like, hey, I'm getting to do these cool stories with monsters, and it's all the stuff like we've said, it's all the stuff we grew up with. It's all the stuff we've been inspired by over the years, and now we're doing it on our own, and hopefully we can inspire someone else, later down the line. And that's kind of what it's all about, and keeping monsters alive, and and keeping that whole kind of industry and all that, keep it kicking. So.
Our buddy indie animator Jim Lujan had a question saying, "Do you consider Freddy Krueger or Jason monsters or just troubled youth?"
Oh, they're monsters to me, but they could be. You can use the word monster different ways, like a child abuser or something, well, which Freddy kind of is. But the, you can always say that kind of monster. But I am a Jason Voorhees fanatic. I can't show it. I got a bust of him up here, life size bust. Of course, I got my figures, my sideshow collectibles. You have to. So, to me, they are monsters in that sense, but they're monsters like Frankenstein is a monster to me.
Yeah,
and Frankenstein's monster, to be correct, but he is my absolute favorite character. I got a whole shelf here of Frankenstein stuff. I know Shannon has a bunch of that too. It's like, for me, it again was always that, and I tell this to my wife and kid too. I get on these rants, but like Frankenstein, King Kong, they're these empathetic or sympathetic characters, right? Where they're kind of thrown into these situations that you took me out of my home, or you dug me out of the grave and you put me into your world, and it doesn't work, and now you're complaining about it. And I don't know whether I can relate to that or not, but I just love those kind of characters. I love humanoid characters. So that's why I do love like Jason Voorhees so much. That's your revenge, right? Like every bully, everything, that's the character. It's like, he doesn't have to have a face. He doesn't have to say a word. Just go freaking get those people.
Yeah.
And I love that. And with Freddy, he's got more of the kind of character driven stuff, which in a way kind of actually makes him a little bit more scary to me, because there's a lot of thought going into what he's saying and things. But to answer Jim's question, yes, for me they are monsters. I love drawing them, and but take that however you want.
I adore that.
Troubled youth can get help it, but I don't see Jason at juvie. That would have went over too well.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I am always kind of curious the line between like a really serious horror movie and a really campy one. I tend to be on the campy side of things. If you had to pick like what you like the most in horror, are you like into the very like extremely serious or the almost like unintentionally bad?
I am a diehard with Leather, Texas Chainsaw, Leatherface, Jason, all those guys, because that's what I grew up with. But and I love Phantasm. Obviously, Phantasm's been good to me.
Yeah,
I love that series. That's where I go for that kind of like deep thinking stuff. But the kid in me, the movies I'm constantly putting on over and over are Evil Dead, Return of the Living Dead. Maybe I don't think it's even because I'm older. It's just, and actually I'm out trying to fund a movie right now that falls into that vein. So fingers crossed.
Ooh, I hope so. I hope you get it.
But it's in that vein, which is they're comedy, but the problem I have with a lot of horror comedies, it's just it knows what it is. So
It's not sincere.
be-
Yeah.
yeah, those movies are trying. They're like the first Evil Dead, even Evil Dead 2 kind of knew what it was, but it still takes itself seriously. And if
Yes.
you look at freaking Jaws is a B movie, right? It's a giant shark, it's attacking the city, but it's how you treat it as
Yeah.
an A movie that takes it to this next level. And I feel like Return of the Living Dead, as campy as it is, as much as the director Dan O'Bannon had issues with it, as much of all that, but you had William Stout doing some of the greatest
Yeah.
designs and stuff, and all of it coming together just makes a fun movie that you can still watch today. It still holds up.
Yeah.
And the characters is fantastic. So to answer your question, I love campy, but I need campy to not just be a joke. It's
Yeah. It needs to be like true kitsch, not like fake.
That's kind of where the line is for me, where it goes into we know we're being campy because we don't have any money, so let's just make a joke here. It's like, no, I want to see more absurd situations that are handled.
Yeah, I want to see like it,
but because the situation's so nuts.
Yeah,
that it makes it fun.
Some of my favorite movies that are horror movies are epic failures. Like they're not just like they didn't fail, they like failed. Like but like they failed good. Like they were trying to make
I say
a
this
masterpiece
in podcasts and stuff, but I totally mean it. I love older movies from the 80s and 90s, not just because of the creativity that went into them, because they didn't have CG to fall back on, things like that. I still highly, and I use it myself, think those are good tools to have when budget's an issue.
Yeah.
But it's the creativity, but the passion that goes into making a movie. There has to be passion. Same with comic books. It's a lot of freaking work to do a book. Shannon and I are committing months and months and months, years making books, and there has to be passion behind it, and you have to be able to stick with it from beginning to end, and that's difficult. And with movies, it's that passion, Josh, that I think you're even reacting to, that they're trying so hard and they're telling a good story. You might laugh at some of the shenanigans that happen, or net effects or something, but again, to me it's like, but the story is actually compelling.
I rewatched The Birds the other day, and it's one of my least watched Hitchcock flicks, right?
Which is funny, a lot of people tell me that too, where I absolutely love The Birds because
it's brilliant. It
really is, and
it's such a It is literally like one of the silliest premises on planet Earth, but it's taken so seriously. It doesn't really
go anywhere like his other movies that kind of wrap up loose ends. And it kind of like, hey, all this crazy stuff happened. Oh, it's done.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know.
But it's great. I mean, it's great.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a great. It's a great example of that, because it's like, it's being taken very seriously. And that makes it great. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be as fun of a movie, I think.
Well, and it's shot so well, and it's choreographed so well, and
and acted incredibly. And honestly, I watched it, and I did have the moment that I had when I was a kid. Where I was like. I teach art at a high school now, and the high school has a bunch of birds that like flock at the top. And my first day at that campus, I was like looking at them, kind of like, like just kind of eyeing them, like you crows, like be careful. But yeah, I am really excited to see this book. It's visually stunning. The plots sound really fun and adventurous, and like the fun part about looking through it too is like the variety of world building that's going on there, where like you were saying, David, that Shannon's included all these vehicles and interesting like factoids from and locations and broad adventures and stuff. And I think it's really pretty exciting to see. So when did these launch?
Yeah, that's one thing. I had one other question too. I'm just curious. So is Titan kind of using MonsterForge as a brand, or like as a what's the term? An imprint? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an exclusive one because we do
Right.
have MonsterForge branding on our Dark Horse book.
Right.
And we've got it
Oh,
on
okay.
the crowdfunded stuff that I did. Dave Hartman and I did a book called Ghosts with David Dasmalchian and Rodney Barnes and
Yeah.
Van Cullenbahn. I'm trying to think of all the other China Cluxton for it. It was just friends of mine who all like the kind of same stuff, but didn't know each other. And I'm like, no one's going to greenlight this. But
Right.
But this
So is it more of a studio then? Is it more of a studio, and then it's just then Titan would be the distributor, the publisher? Is that kind of?
Yeah, they're basically helping us get
Yeah.
the thing to market, but unlike a usual thing where you pitch an idea and then they go yes and then you go build it. Like we built it. We're like, hey, we're taking it to you because we think you'll like it.
But it's like Wildstorm. Jim Lee's Wildstorm was for Image, right? It's that same mentality. It's
cool.
This group of people. This is what we stand for, and but we're able to put it out, different ways. And so I think Kraken is, correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon. Is it September? I believe it comes out this year, this fall, September. It should be. I mean, it's for pre-order now, and I think you can actually even get it on Amazon and other stuff pre-order.
Oh,
Tell your local comic shops.
Yeah, but definitely hit your comic shops, but hit your Barnes and Noble, hit anybody. Please let them know because I think it's a fun book, and I really want to get as many eyes on it. And again, we got Mike Mignola doing a cover, which is just.
How did that come about? Is he easy to get a hold of?
That's Shannon's
You gotta find that window in between all of what Mike is building with his own world.
Right.
And,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is just like, how did he even make the time? That's crazy.
I basically took advantage of a moment where I'm like, Mike likes, because I like all of Mike's stuff. Let's hit him up now.
Yeah.
It worked out really well for us. And I saw he just announced his new, part of his. I just blanked on the name, but the Bowling with Corpses universe that he's building is his imprint over there at Dark Horse, which is not Hellboy related stuff. They just announced his new book today. But again, it's like he's building stuff and he found a place that Dark Horse has been good to him and he's been good to Dark Horse. And I think it's like he's got that relationship. And so for Dave and I, the folks at Titan, doesn't mean they're greenlighting everything we do, but we're trying to find the things that they do love, and then that's what we lean into. And if it's not for them, then we'll go find somebody else who loves it.
I love it. And I love when you can build a relationship like that with a publisher. I think a lot of people, when they're new to, this kind of thing, think of publishers like rejecting submissions and all that kind of stuff, and we'll have like negative views of publishers, but a lot of the key thing is just finding a publisher who actually believes in the thing you're doing. Because you don't want a publisher who doesn't know how to market your book, putting it out.
A certain level of trust on both ends, right? They're trusting us to deliver a good product, and we're trusting them to make sure people see that product. And I feel with Titan, not that I've worked a lot in comics, but I really feel really comfortable with everything that we've been doing so far and seeing what they're doing, and it's really exciting.
That is great. Yeah, when you find that kind of relationship, you wanna keep that going because that's beautiful,
Yeah.
And that's cool that they're willing to put out some rad monster books. I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like that's kind of the goal, right?
I think that was the thing that was exciting too, is it wasn't that they were just excited about the one project, because that's usually how you go. They were like, oh, I see what you guys are trying to build here. That's cool. Can we help support that? And so it was like, tell us what you've got.
Yeah.
And now the more we get to know them, then we know which projects do. Oh, but this one's probably not a Titan project. This one's for somebody over here. Because again, it's all relationships.
Yeah.
Every publisher, to your point, yes, they're a company, but they're also a person you got to interact with first, and then that person's got to go get other people to sign off on your project. So they have to love it enough to go walk out of their office, down the hall or whatever.
They have to defend it to the suits, okay?
Basically everything, all this creative industry, it's always depending on finding someone to help champion your project to get it to that next level,
Yeah, TV film, I mean, the suits always get a bad rep, but I'm friends with a lot of execs that I think are really good at their job. And any of my things, so I love them. It's it's trying to find those relationships.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing. I'm excited about these books coming out. That's pretty cool. September is coming up.
I know.
Which is exciting.
it's a lot closer than I thought.
I'm promoting it.
Oh, that's exciting. Comic-Con will be good this year too.
Yeah.
Well, so if you guys are at Comic-Con, definitely stop by and say hi to Shannon. Will you be there too, David?
I'm hoping it. I'm always wishy-washy with this stuff because I'm like, yeah, I'll be there, and then it's like time comes, it's like, I'm drawing on the couch.
Yeah. No, I understand. I'm like, it's funny. I've had to like take a break from any conventions for a reasonable time, just finishing a book, you know. But it's like, but definitely, if you guys are at Comic-Con, make sure you stop by and say hi to Shannon and like, you know, pick up that book. If you guys have comic stores nearby, ask them to order it. If you're broke and you can't afford to even pre-order it, the best thing you can do is go to your local library and ask them to pre-order it. Like, libraries are a huge thing for comics. Like, librarians are good friends of comics. So don't feel shy if you're kind of thinking about that. I think that's pretty beautiful. Is there anything we kind of missed, Scott? Is there anything we didn't ask that you feel like we should kind of touch on? Or
no, I'm just excited about everything
I am
I've seen
too.
so far. I got the PDF and I got up to kind of the reveal. Well, it's not a huge reveal because you can kind of see what happens to the main character on the cover. But I got to that point, so I'm looking forward to reading more and then get the actual physical book.
Yeah.
And then David's got some stuff that he kind of showed us also that he's going to be working. We'll have him back when he's ready to announce that.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that as well. So, yeah. The only other thing, there was a comment I just want to really quick address. I'll pull it up and I'll answer it real quickly, somewhat. I want to know if anyone on the panel has seen Sinners and what characters would make a great comic series or I don't know what GN project means, but graphic novel, right? Yeah, I think Sinners I've seen. It's great. If anyone hasn't seen it, go out and see it. If that isn't already being planned to translate into comic books, it would at some point. It's got to, because I mean, it's just right for
Jordan's been making comics already at Dark Horse.
Yeah, and also Ryan Coogler is so tied to Black Panther and Marvel, and so it's got there's got to be something in the works.
I'm sure it's already in the works.
I would hope so. To answer the question, without giving away spoilers to the other people on this panel who have not seen the movie yet,
I haven't.
There's the Smokestack Brothers stories that you could do before they got down there, and then there's the whole just everybody else you meet along the way from the end of the movie.
Yeah,
where they end up.
The villains are really interesting. You know, where they came from, all that the whole thing. Yeah, so yeah, definitely.
They did a lot of world building in a good way without it bogging anything down. It's there, and they've got a deep well to go back to. So I'm excited for that franchise.
That's really cool. I'll have to scope it out. Cool. So the links to David and Shannon's sites, sideshowmonkey.com and monsterforge.com, like they're both down there. Productions.com. Both links are down there in the show notes. So monsterforgeproductions.com. And you can kind of see what MonsterForge is up to just collectively, like what's going to come out and the toys and all the neat products and stuff that they're backing. And then David's stuff, obviously, you should be following Sideshow Monkey. It's always fun to see what David's working on. The man's. Shannon, do you get jealous of David's output, like artistically? I don't understand how he does pages.
My favorite thing, because I'm a late night person and Dave's an early morning person, so I'll go to bed and get up and I'm like, there's 3 new pages, and I'm so fired up as a creator, co-creating with him, but then also as an artist, I'm like, yeah, do that,
yeah. He's a wonder kind. But anyhow, I'm excited to see your collaboration. It's fun too because you guys are so like-minded. Like, it's been fun to interview you because I can tell why you collaborate so well, just because you play off each other really well, even in the interview.
So much more we want to do. It's like I feel like we're just kind of, scratching the surface here. We have so many stories we both want to tell, and MonsterForge has just been a great way to do that.
Yeah.
To just compile all these ideas and all these different kind of properties we all want to develop, and MonsterForge has been a great home for.
I love it. I'm gonna have to pitch to MonsterForge my Victorian sea-doo writing. No, I'm just kidding. I have this bit that I came up with, because I do live streams while I'm working, and I'm working on a historical fiction book. But then I came up with this idea where it would be like Miami Vice, but it's like, Victorian London, and then it's like a guy on a sea-doo with like an Uzi and like a monocle.
You should make that.
I want to. I might actually have to do that.
Project. Yeah. I want to do a bit of.
I edited the Miami Vice comics, so I'm ready to go.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Who was that for, Shannon? Who
that was for Lion Forge. We got to do the reunion panel too down at Comic-Con. So it was like Edward James Olmos and me and the rest of the
wow.
Oh, that's unbelievable. That's beautiful.
They didn't show up, but the rest of the guys did. So it was great.
Yeah, but that's awesome.
That's great. Lion Forge is great too. My friend Amanda, we had her on. She's an editor there. She's a really good person. So,
Jim Mahfood and Joe Casey rocking that one.
Oh, Mahfood stuff. I have a high school love of Mahfood because no, that was Dorkin. What did Mahfood do?
Yeah.
Girl Scout.
Girl Scout. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I still have a high school love for Evan Dorkin. Anyhow, I'm getting everybody confused in my head. All right, so Scott, I think we're about to close out, so I'm going to have everybody kind of one last time let people know where to find us, unless there's any other things. I think we're good, right? Did we cover everything, guys?
I have one other thing I want to say, because I'm doing another project with Kuber Ball on art and my buddy Dirk Blackman, who wrote the Outlander movie. And
perfect.
Movies, and that's called Savager, and it's at Panic Entertainment. That's
Ooh,
it looks really cool.
So.
Ooh, okay. What's Savager about it? Just real quick.
It's basically the last man on Earth, alien Cthulhu invasion, and he gets transformed into a monster, and it's like he's just on a quest to kill every single.
Are you seeing a theme here?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain point where you're just like, hey, I want to do this, and it's like,
yeah,
I have two werewolf ideas. Do I do just one? If you love them both, I'm going to do both. So that's
exactly
that was very freeing when we started up MonsterForge. It was like, I'm not gonna worry about splitting hairs. I'm just going to have fun and find ways to make these.
That's the way to do it.
Okay, and if you guys ever do a werewolf property, you have to let me know, because my son is like a huge werewolf nerd. Like, he loves werewolves.
Awesome. Oh, I got to give
He's
you some
12.
werewolf part.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of werewolf prints I've done. Send them
awesome.
Yeah. I know that if I did a werewolf thing with Dave Hartman and I did one with Tom Mandrake, they would be completely different, but they would both be awesome. So I just leaned into that, and I'm much happier. And I think that's the insight that you have when you start getting the gray hair, is you start realizing, like, hey, I've been liking the same shit for a long time. I'm just going to lean into the stuff I like instead of stressing about whether it's 4-quadrant.
Yeah, the amount of how can I say it? The amount of F's you give as you get older, it become less and less, and it becomes so much more freeing creatively. Where you're just like, I really am embracing the things I like, and I think you end up, I don't know, I think it's a golden
Look at the
time
John
to make.
Wick franchise. Like, that was nothing new, but it was completely new. Like, if you had pitched it in an elevator, somebody would have said no. But then you see the execution of it, and it's all those creatives and those artists and writers, and they all brought something. Keanu, they gave us a new version of the thing we like, which is a Rambo, Arnold Schwarzenegger movie from the 80s. But it's again, don't overthink it. Just if you're having fun, you're doing the right thing. Yeah,
and I will say the pitch works really well for the audience, because I remember being told about that movie, and it was like a guy's dog gets killed, and then he goes on a rampage and fights everybody, who took killed his dog or whatever. And it's like, that in itself, like, it's like, okay, that's the stupidest plot ever. I have to see this movie. Like, that's great, I love that. What was the
great werewolf story? Shannon,
okay.
You later, we're going to do.
Okay. I thought you were going to tell a cool werewolf story. I'm like, we can stay here for a few minutes.
Charge you for that. No, that's one of those things. That's another thing too. Like, telling your story. A lot of times, I want to just keep it in, because I tell it, I feel like I've told it, and then it's like I lose all. I kind of want to surprise people. And I kind of lose my own steam.
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, because you're like, well, why tell it now? Because I told it. I love it. Well, cool. Well, thanks to everybody in the chats who's
you.
joined us, and definitely if you haven't, Hartman's been on a bunch. Shannon, it's your first time on. I'm sure we'll happily have you back on to talk anything on here. Thanks for coming on, guys, and we'll just do a rounds and let everybody know where to find us. If you're on my channel and you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications when we go live. And then basically make sure you check out Two Stories or Jacob's Apartment. Shannon, where can everybody find more of your work?
I would just say MonsterForgeProductions.com, and then from there you can find all the other socials.
I love it. I love it. And then David, where do you want to send everybody?
Well, there's SideshowMonkey.com, which is my site, but it's not always updated. I'm letting people know now. But if you go to my Instagram, David Hartman Art, I post, quite frequently there. Lots of new art and sketches. I got my band Zorgon, which you can look at on pretty much any digital platform, Spotify, Apple Music, all that. And on TV, got Twilight of the Gods and Arc, both are available now, and which most people have seen them if they're going to see it. But they're out there. I'm proud of them, so please check them out.
Yeah, those are some beautiful, beautiful pieces there. Twilight of the Gods, man. Some of that animation is sick. Like, it's so good.
It was fun.
I love it. All right, Scott. It's weird. Again, I'm still not getting used to Scott being on the same screen with David. It's such a rare occasion. But I'm glad you graced us with your presence for an interview with David.
Of course.
So, Scott, where can everybody find your work? And if they're into like retro things like vintage wax packs and stuff like that, where should they go? And then lastly, how do they keep track of this crazy train, the Artcasters?
Yeah, you can find all that stuff on my website. There's links to pretty much everything. The aforementioned wax packs are in my store. And those are basically wax pack trading cards of movies that never got wax pack trading cards. I've got a whole bunch of them that I've custom made. Check those out. Also, there's links to my YouTube channel. I've got a bunch of cool videos on how to make comics and how I reinvent cool Gen X stuff. So check that out. And then, pretty much everything else there's a link from my website. Just go to circworks.com.
Oh, is Young and the Dead available to order on the website yet?
Not yet. It will. It's on my to-do list. It'll be up pretty soon.
It's a great book. It's highly recommended. Definitely anyone should pick it up. I really enjoyed reading it. It took me back.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the goal. Is just
there was a Beastmaster reference in it, Scott.
Yeah,
and I'm so happy.
That was it was Beastmaster, or what else? There was two things I was trying to figure out which one I wanted to go with, and I went with Beastmaster. I forgot what the other movie was offhand, but I'm kind of glad I went with
that was great.
Yeah. So anyway, other than that, this show, the Artcasters, we do this show every single week, usually on Tuesday nights, but it does rotate back and forth between Josh's channel and my own. So that can be a little confusing, but if you don't want to be confused, just join our mailing list. We don't spam you or anything. All we do is let you know, usually try to at least 30 minutes ahead of time who the guest is going to be, what the topic's going to be, whose channel it's on, just so you know. So just make it easier for you guys. So click on the link in the description to join that mailing list. Again, I want to thank everyone in the chat. Thanks for all the great questions. Sorry if we didn't get to yours, but join us next week and we'll try again.
Awesome. All right, guys. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it.